Hello and welcome to our daily tip number 31. I've had a few requests to show how to build different types of waterfalls. You can use any sorts of transparent pieces that you want. Of course, the smaller ones are going to give you more detail. The bigger ones will be easier to construct. I'm going to go from some very simple waterfalls and then show you a little bit more complicated ones. I'm going to clear this away and start building. Stay tuned. To start any waterfall, you are going to need to have a cliff face of some sort. This I cobbled together with a bunch of slopes and plates that I just mounted up. I made sure that we had a nice little area in here for our waterfall to fall into. When a waterfall actually goes down, it digs in underneath your pond or whatever it's falling into. So make sure that you build up the sides a bit so that it looks like it's actually created some depth here. As the water slowly goes away from that area, usually, unless it's a really big waterfall and a huge amount of water, you are going to get a gentle tapering up the shoreline. So I've got this, and now it's time to show you a very quick and simple waterfall. This takes no time at all if you just want to get the effect. Obviously, this one is really simple. It is just constructed with some clear slopes and some clear bricks. It's just meant to give the effect without putting a lot of work into it. If you're just looking for like a waterfall in the backdrop or something like that, and you don't want it to be the main focus of your build, then this works perfectly fine to give you the effect of a waterfall. Next, we're going to move on to something a little more complicated. And here's one I built using panels for the structure. You can see these are just cockpit pieces that are turned sideways, and there are some other panels underneath just holding that structure up, and it gives a nice gentle curve there, which is what we're looking for with the curve over, and a few studs here and there and tiles for detail, especially around the bottom. Here's a technique I see used a lot in different mocks, is making columns out of your pips. Just like when we were doing the water, make sure to use different colors in there just to break up the pattern. And where your foam at the bottom of your waterfall is happening, you can even add some opaque white pips, and that will just convey that idea of the foaming action. One thing to mention is when a waterfall happens, it generally isn't just a smooth transition over the edge. As the water wears away from the rock face, it usually pushes segments of the rock face back a bit. So when you're giving that smooth edge, you can also add some texture in there to give it more of a lifelike feeling. So now I'm going to show you one where the translucent studs are actually mounted out sideways rather than just up and down. And this is the last one I'm going to show you, where you have the studs pointing out towards the front of the waterfall. Of course, you could always run it that way and have the rocks and stuff causing ripples down through the stream before it falls flat. I'm going to show you how to do that, but I know this is very uniform and flat and shaped. You can imagine this being in a fountain at a hotel or something like that. So I want to show you how I did it. As I mentioned, all the studs are facing that way, and I just used some big panels up here to get this construction easily. Of course, where the round over happens, where the waterfall goes over the edge, I have these rounded off bits. So we're going to take that off, and this construction is just facilitated by locking all that together through the back. So let's take that off first, and then things start to fall apart very quickly, you'll see. So if we unlock these sides, they're just there to, again, shape it. They're not really there for function. We'll pop the other side off, and they're just held in with studs on the side, bricks, and then locked in the back with this. Okay, and finally get down to the nuts and bolts here. So these are all connected, if I can pry one out, by these pieces that are usually used in the front of a car to put your headlights and bumpers and stuff like that on it. So if we lock a series of those together with plates, what you see is we get that staggered approach, and they all lock together, and in the middle we also get that staggering. So I lock them together by just putting the plates one over top of the other, or the tiles, sorry, the clear tiles. At the top, the tiles are actually locked in, but at the bottom, they are not. What is locking these headlight pieces together are just some more gray plates. So as we get to the bottom, we'll see how this construction happened. So that's one of those fender pieces, and then a plate connecting each of those together. And then to make up the space that's in the middle, it's just a plate and a tile underneath, and that's the perfect spacing for that. And we'll keep digging down here so you can see the very initial construction of those. So in the middle we have 3 wide plates that just lock onto those studs there, and they lock in on the post, and from post to the next stud is the perfect spacing. So I wanted to show you this because all I did with this was literally look at my parts bin and see what I could come up with that was a different way to do a waterfall, because just like stained windows, there are a lot of different ways to construct your waterfall. Don't get stuck into a rut where you're doing waterfalls the same way time and again. Just like everything else in nature, there's a huge variety in how waterfalls fall. If they fall smooth, if they fall rough, if they're huge like Niagara Falls, or if they're simply a little waterfall coming from a stream. There's a whole lot of different ways to do it. The only thing you really need to concern yourself with is getting that curving at the top of the waterfall where it begins to fall, and then at the bottom that little divot and the splash into the lake. If you go back to the tutorial I did on water, at beach water, I will actually show another one where we have ripples being caused in the water by something dropping into them, and that will follow this waterfall tutorial tomorrow. I hope this was useful for you. If it was, please like, subscribe, and share. You can also support us on Patreon if you wish to do so. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and Google Plus, and all the other places, so you can join in the conversation there. Have a fantastic day, and keep dreaming in bricks. Bye-bye!